Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you being here for our kind of public input on budget priorities. This is being live streamed, so I'll use the mic. Dr. Sloat will then use the mic as well. And thank you for making time to come out. And thank you for valuing Liberty Elementary School District and your child's education or being an involved community member. We appreciate it. The purpose of tonight will be for you to be able to provide input on budget priorities that the board should consider. Dr. Sloat will speak here in a few minutes. He'll actually compile all the data that's kind of the input and the feedback that you have and provide that to the governing board prior to kind of the board's budget priority meeting. We're looking to have that on Monday, March the 24th. I believe that's the Monday after spring break with the board. And so the board will be able to have this data from tonight. So thank you for being here. And I hope that you can be positive, open-minded, and help us come up with some really good solutions. So I wanted to share a few things with you guys, just in kind of setting the context about tonight. As you guys know, we're conducting a budget analysis for the current school year. That's 24 to 25. And then we're also looking, what you'll do tonight will be with regards to the budget for the next, for next year. To be able to reduce the budget. We don't have the specific number at this point, but we will by the time we have the study session on March the 24th. We might be about 2 million right now because we're doing a lot of different things with our budgeting and our M&O budget and different funds, and so. But we'll have that for the board on the 24th. But we want to develop a very fiscally sound budget and have those priorities so the board can help us make those decisions as we move into the next school year. So what you'll do tonight would not start until July, August. Okay, it wouldn't start right now. It would be for the next school year, 2025. So that's July 1. I kind of went over the purpose of the meeting is to identify some of those budget priorities. I'm going to share some of the budget priorities that district administration has come up with and a little bit of the rationale, and then count on you guys for your view of the big picture of the district and maybe things we haven't considered or things that you've seen that we have considered. And just the last statement, is as the district administration on the next slide, I'll show you kind of what was the focus of the filter for our decision making. Well, not decision making, but where we are right now and working towards a recommendation for the board was to, it's probably best that I read it, protect and prioritize classroom instruction, classroom teachers, and the core curriculum content for all students. Okay, and so we're kind of working off of that to really prioritize that. And there's a lot of things we do in the district. Everything touches the students, but some things touch the students a little less. And so we're really trying to protect that. That's why we kind of put that statement. We are, as we looked at some of these recommendations. So some of the ideas that we came up with were here. It was on another slide that you may have seen from a week or two ago. But I don't know if there's okay. So we start with the district office and reducing administration potentially. That was made very clear to us by the board. And so there's positions. You'll see this word attrition. How we kind of define attrition is those are unfilled positions for the next school year. So when we say like a district secretary would be reduced next school year, there's no one in that position right now. Same thing with educational. I'll show you on the next slide. Okay, some of the ideas, but educational services coordinator, individuals in the operations department, our communications director resigned. So there's no one in that position. So potentially next year we want to fill that position. Okay, so that's what we kind of mean by this word attrition. We have some counselor positions that are open now, psychologist positions that are open. We have a number of reading interventionists that will not be returning to us next year. And instructional coaches. So those positions would potentially not be filled. Okay, so that's what that word attrition means right there. And these are some other areas that we'll talk about that we've considered for savings. And I won't go through every single one, but I think Dr. Sloat made a handout for you guys. Okay, and these are just some things we've come up with. Okay, on the next slide, you'll see some money, some numbers attached to this. Some estimated savings. This is very rough. Okay. It's a draft. You can see the watermark here, but you can see different positions where there's been attrition, and you can see like reduction of memberships, reduction of consulting fees, energy savings that we'll have, the budget for the communication, marketing, the communications director marketing budget. You can see some savings with regards to our, this is a tips account with regard to our insurance liability. We have some credit in there where we can draw out $100,000 of that credit. The new web page, armored services. So we have quite a bit of different savings that are listed here that totals up to just about right here. And these are savings that we've considered as district office leadership administration to potentially offer to the governing board to consider. Over here, I would say this is a little more site level, if you will. Like if this is more district, this is a little more site. We have a few different things here. We put like the counselors, psychologists, instructional coach, like I said, the attrition of those positions kind of there. Permanent guest teachers was a big one. We know we talked about that last year. It used to be ESSER funded, the permanent guest teachers, and it's rolled over into our M&O. We actually have 9 positions, but only 7 of them are currently filled. Okay. And then you have, you know, potentially reducing an AD, athletic director stipend and a few different things. This doesn't mean that this is the right answers necessarily, but I wanted to show you some of the things that leadership has come up with as far as reduction, you know, and just some basic amounts, you know, up to about $3 million. I don't think we need to reduce that high. Like I said, we're probably at about 2 million right now, and hopefully it'll be lower as we continue to do some work currently. So that's kind of on your flyer there. There's things like this you might see where we reallocate some resources, meaning we pay a lot of things out of maintenance and operations, but there's a lot of other accounts that we can pay out of. And we can really maximize those accounts. So what this says is there's about 231,000 in our M&O that we can just use a different fund to pay for half of those positions. And the employee doesn't know the difference, but we can just be smarter with our budget. In school finance, there's lots of pots of money that can be utilized for different things, and there's strings attached. And so we want to just be really creative because we have a habit of coding everything to our maintenance and operations, and there's other funds that we can look at to fund things out of, or percentages or what have you. So we're doing a lot of work on that. And like I said, this already changed. So we were already working on something this afternoon, so it's already a little out of date. Dr. Sloat and I were kind of laughing about this, but we have like skilled maintenance worker, for example. We have a skilled maintenance worker who's retiring. He's great, awesome worker, but he's retiring. So we would potentially not fill that position, and we'd split up the duties between other maintenance worker positions. Communications director, we don't fill that position. We split up some of those duties amongst other positions. Same thing, groundskeeper, assessment coordinators, district secretaries. We find a way to be more effective and try and protect the classroom as much as possible. The classroom teacher, class sizes, those kind of things. That's all these categories reflects our maintenance and operations expenditures. Okay, that's what's kind of been presented. Again, not all staff reductions reflect the loss of the position, but may reflect a reallocation to alternative funding sources. And again, as we start to grow, as we can continue to grow and build up our reserves, it's not to say that, for example, some of these attrition positions can't be, I don't even want to say added, they just wouldn't be filled. We would distribute those duties, but it's not to say that those things can't return. And most of the staff positions reflect those vacant for, some are vacant for this year and then going into next year. And as we walk around and we do the activity, we can help you with some of these things, just if you're curious to know some of our savings, but I'm really curious to know also some of the input and feedback you guys have, because we can also collect that for the board. What we'll do with the board is have the board do a prioritization activity. And I do want to say I appreciate Board Member Schmidt, Vice President Zimmerman for being here. As board members, they'll probably walk around, listen, okay? But I appreciate them being here to kind of hear the feedback and the input, and that'll also be provided to all 4 board members. So Dr. Sloat, I know you want to do some quick intros. Oh, Mr. Lyons, did you have a question? Oh, right there.
If we have questions about line items up there, because one seems to be a duplicate, who do we ask about those?
Yeah, you can ask me which one real quickly is a duplicate you think.
It was transportation savings due to electric buses, and then a little further down, it's the same thing pretty much.
Oh, yeah. So this is, I'm sorry,
Here's the same.
I should have clarified. That's maintenance savings. We think we'll be able to, as we've worked with our department and with the bus company, save about $30,000 on maintenance because there's less maintenance on the electric buses. However, this one is different because because some of the fuel savings. So we won't be using as much diesel gas. And so even though APS rates go up, we think we'll be able to save on fuel savings as well. So those are two different things, fuel savings and then maintenance. Yeah. Yeah. So, less oil changes, those kind of things. So good question. All right, Dr. Sloat, you have the mic? Sure.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. So tonight, you can see that there's round tables here, people sitting around tables, and there's a bunch of manipulatives and resources on the table. So you're in for a workshop experience if you've not been in one before tonight, the way we're going to do this. Before we get started, though, I'd like to have our business office team introduce themselves. So if there are questions throughout the night, you can recognize and know who might be able to help you answer some questions.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Mosier. I'm the accountant in business services, and I'd be happy to help answer any questions.
I'm Megan Canan, and I'm the procurement specialist, so I can help answer some questions.
I'm Rebecca Williams, and I'm here to support Crystal.
Well said. Well said. So tonight the goals of tonight's meeting is to collect information on your perspective, to communicate those perspectives directly to the governing board. So we're going to be collecting information tonight. You can see the poster board that's on your table and cards and post-it notes. We're going to be collecting your ideas. And then what I will do is collect all this information at the end of the workshop and process it and not summarize it, but tabulate everything. And then that will go to the governing board prior to the March 24th meeting for that. So we're really intending to allow you to convey your sense of priorities to the governing board through the process with this. All right, so let's move to what we're going to do tonight. We will all have time to share out at the end. Each table can share out, but in our general activity, that'll give you about 25 minutes to complete. What we're going to do is spend a little time at your tables reviewing the handouts. There are two handouts that you have. I probably should get a copy so I can see it. One of them, it does not have all the dollars on it by line item, but one of them says operational, organizational categories. And so the workings of the school district, in a general sense, can be divided up into some subcategories. So one might think of them as being classroom instruction related. I'm going to put on my glasses so I can see. One might be instruction type things, which is classroom teachers, core curriculum, substitute teachers, those kind of things. Instructional support. So not the direct classroom teachers, but those things that we do in our organization to support instruction. School administration, district office, including administration, staff, and other things, plant operations, transportation. So big categories. So what we tried to do with the help of the team from the business office is put under those big ideas some of the sub areas, right? Now, purposely, we're not going to be able to give you a line item 20-page folder of every single position and line item, because that's not the purpose of tonight. We're not ready to do that yet with that. But these general categories are meant to be here for you to think about, to say, where in these general areas would you recommend that the governing board dig deeper and consider reducing or looking for savings in those areas? So let's do an example. Right off the bat, Dr. Monroe said, the two things that are off the table as far as we're concerned, right off the bat in our thinking, is classroom teachers and the core curriculum. So we would say those things are not in the reduce column or the savings column to look for. Something else like office managers and the school sites, maybe we should look in there, and that would be an area that it might be considered for reduction. I don't know, I'm making this up as I go along. Does that make sense? So what are you telling the governing board if you write down under the reduced category? Oh, sorry, got my fingers going there. What are you telling the governing board if you were to take a Post-it note and write on the Post-it note, substitute teachers, and put that phrase under the reduced category? You're telling them that it's okay to go and look deeper into that category of service and see what kind of savings might be there that we could benefit from, or the budget could benefit from. Does that make sense in how this is working? Now, so you could write down any of these. I'm giving this to you as, so you don't have to just start thinking about it from scratch. You have these categories. Somebody else, like Mr. Lyons and I were talking before, might say, well, I think what we should do is reduce the watering at Blue Horizons football field to once a month and save money. If that's what you feel, then you could write that under the reduced column. There's no limitation about what you can put here. This is meant to just help you think about it and give you categories to think about. Right? So hopefully that's helpful. Now, on the other side of that handout is the categories that the district office has done the work on to see where the attrition level, where the vacancies are right now, where things might be reduced, where we could have some savings, and to give you a little sense about how much money those categories might contribute to overall savings. So this is giving you detail, but it is not exhaustive. We just simply can't give you the detail on every single part of the organization at this meeting tonight, nor would you want that to flip through. That's not the intent of what we're telling the governing board through this meeting. So you are free to put anything under any of the three columns. Reduce means look for savings. It's okay to reduce that area. Unsure means maybe, but not as strongly as it would be if you say, yes, go look for reduction. And the do not reduce is saying off limits. Just do not, we don't think you should go there. Does this make sense? If you have, sometimes I just keep talking unless somebody raises their hand and asks me a question. Yeah.
In the interest of full disclosure when making our decision, some of these on the list, can you cut? I mean, speech, occupational therapists, aren't they legally required?
So let's clarify what we're asking. I would be asking you, what do you think we should look at, investigate further for possible savings? If you feel that speech should be off the table, then you would say, don't even look there. But even if you don't know the detail, if you think, yeah, that could be an area that we should look deeper at, that's what you want to tell the governing board,
Okay.
right? Does that make sense?
It does. Yep, it does. Thank you. Yes, you can.
Sometimes I ask, does that make sense? The person goes, yes, and I can see it in their eyes.
Don't agree with, it's, we're not totally educated to make that decision, if that makes sense. Like,
Say that once
I
again.
don't feel like we're fully educated enough to make that assumption
And unless you were,
unless I directly have someone involved in speech. So,
right.
I realize how important it is. Just like core curriculum and reading interventionist, how are they going to read their core curriculum if they can't read? It's a lot.
It is a lot, and this is a very, very difficult thing to do, is it not?
Oh, yeah.
To make this decision. So put yourself in the governing board's shoes about,
I'd love to.
well, there you go. I think we have a new candidate for next
I
time
am a
around. It is a very tough thing to do. It's very difficult to do because you're talking about cutting. In some cases, we might have the flexibility that there is attrition. It's vacant now. It's in our budget. We've budgeted for it, but no one is in that slot or that service is not being fully implemented. Then that might become an easy way. But when it gets hard is when you have to balance the budget and you have to cut something. So both of those are in there. The question this activity would be asking you is, what is your feeling and your sense of where we should look? If you think speech maybe not be in the reduce, then you'd write it or put it in. It could be a maybe, or maybe you put it in the do not reduce. I feel strongly enough about the areas of special ed. Please don't look there. I don't think you should be reducing services, no matter what. If you feel that, that's what this is asking you to express. Yes.
Something on here indicating that this particular position is required by law. IDEA, for example.
Right. If you don't have that level of detail, because that's going to be riddled throughout all the line items, where the budget money comes from, what's the budget source of the money, whether we can get rid of, you know what I'm saying?
Most of what you have up there is flexible, but some of them might not be.
Might not be, yeah.
Quick question, Education Services Coordinator, is that position currently empty? And why are we considering that for cuts? Why is it not necessary? Absolutely. Second line item.
Yeah, the assessment coordinator, the educational services coordinator, RN Ed services, and those positions will be vacant next year. You'll notice that a lot of the attrition positions we tried to hit in various different departments, so it's not just all one department, but they'll be vacant next year, so it'll be like an attrition situation.
Well, what about that particular position makes it an option for cutting? Because if it's what I think it is, and correct me, please, it's essentially developing our curriculum, refining our curriculum, making sure we have curriculum committees and getting input from the community, and going back to the schools and really finding out, is this working the way that it was advertised to us? So please, is there a reason why this is something that is worth getting rid of? Because it's so, if I'm correct, foundational to the success of our students overall.
Well, and that's why we're having this tonight, because we want to hear your guys' input. When we talk about the core instruction, because the argument can be had, and Mr. Smith is not wrong, but the argument could be had on all of these things of how vital they are, and that's why we want your input tonight. And so, like I said, what we've tried to preserve in the middle, sacred, is kind of core instruction and the content area for all students. And you could make an argument to say that educational service coordinator is critical to that. Okay. Or you could say, no, it's not. It's maybe a little farther out. And so that's why we want your guys' input tonight. That department would be reduced, and we would, like in a lot of our district office departments, redistribute some of the duties in order to try to protect the classroom as much as possible. However, I don't disagree. All the things up here, this is not easy. This is serious. This is really hard. And so you have to really make an evaluative decision of that's what the activity you guys will do. Because Mr. Smith may say, well, I disagree. I think it's critical and I think it should be. And
Which is why I asked, because I can't make a decision if I don't know for sure. Can you give us an idea of how you would distribute those particular tasks across the district?
yeah, I would say in a lot of areas, you have to empower your teachers. A lot of times you work with your teachers, and sometimes you find grants to pay your teachers to do that work. As a smaller district, we don't have the economy of scale. That's a fancy word. We don't have this economy of scale of larger districts that have these really large departments. And so we have to count on teachers. Now, remember, with regards to our ed services department, there's a lot of support at the sites as far as reading interventionists and instructional coaches. And so a lot of that money considered for ed services is also dedicated to the site. So it could be redistributed between the jobs, but it just makes it more challenging to do. But everything up here is challenging, whether you're looking at ed services or landscaping or HR or what have you, communication director, or whatever's up here. And so we would redistribute those duties, and then we have to do more with less. And we are a lean district office, as you guys know. There's not a lot of money that's been put into administration on the AG's report over the past few years to the district office. So we would have to sharpen our pencil, redistribute some duties, some job descriptions, and all do a little bit more.
To instructional coaches, sorry. If we're going to redistribute to instructional coaches, then that would make that shared instructional coach at LES and LZES. Is that Las Prisa?
Loretta Zumbro.
Loretta Zumbo, sorry. That would make that a non-option, I would assume, because then there's no one to pick up that if they're going to be a core recipient of distributing
Yeah,
that.
potentially. That's a shared option, likely because of the school sizes that will be. Those schools would likely be smaller. But yeah, again, that's no easy decisions, and this is why we are having all of this input. So thank you, Mr. Smith.
That shared instructional coach doing both jobs will just be anticipated to pick up the extra slack regardless, because that's what happens in our environments. Also with the ed services, just so you guys know, ed services also supports the teachers. They're the ones that give us differentiated instruction for our professional developments. And if we don't have that as well, that's kind of, it's important to us. Our ed services department is the one that has been depleted this year. And they have worked tirelessly, not only for our students, but for our staff. Just within the last few years is the only times that I've had, as an art teacher, been able to meet with other art teachers in the district and work collaboratively with them. That was never an option in years past. So I'm not saying that assessment coordinator position doesn't need to remain open, but that's also a way that they support us staff. I personally think that the assessment coordinator, if it doesn't get filled, needs to be the district office needs to pick up the slack with that, not our instructional coaches.
Hello. I was just going to say, as a teacher and looking just at the benefit savings for HSA saving, just so everybody knows that, we were encouraged to take the high deductible with the HSA because it saves the district money. So just so you know, so if we take that off, we're probably going to cost you more money because you're going to put us on a higher cost plan. So that is a little bit tricky up there. I think you probably need to look at that a little bit. And also it will end up taking the cost of that as well. So you'll take cost, we'll take cost. I see lots of places where teachers are taking the brunt of this. I see like, oh, we don't get the signing bonus. We have to pay more for HSA. We're going to pick up all these duties that are going to be reassigned. That we need to think about that. We're going to do more with less. If we're doing more with less, everybody does more with less.
Yeah, let me just clarify something too. I should have said, and we'll get to you, Ed, and your activity. Where was it? Is the signing bonus on here? The signing bonus would be just to fund it out of a different category. It would not to be to fund it out of the M&O. This is all maintenance and operations. So we're planning on funding the signing bonus out of the classroom site fund. So what happens is if we can fund it out of another account, it's a savings to our maintenance and operations. So I'm sorry, I should have explained that a little bit because it is misleading. No, it can be funded. Yeah. No, it can be funded. And there's a lot of those that are up here too. As you guys are doing your activity, we can walk around and talk to you about that. But this is M&O savings. Some of these things are funded through a different account. For example, the Loomis Armored Car Service, $16,000. We don't need to fund that out of maintenance and operations. There's plenty of other accounts where that can be funded out of. That's why we're getting input, and that's what we're going to be changing.
I don't need that.
Okay, Dr. Slope. Oh, one more question, then we'll go to Ed.
Thank you. Have we had a communications director before? Before this gentleman or this person?
The position was created, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, the communications director position.
All right. And if we feel strongly about protecting something tonight, we just put it in do not reduce, right? And if enough people vote for that, I mean, that at least gives you an idea.
Well,
we're not going to slug it out tonight, but if
yeah, what's happening is you guys are going to provide your input and your feedback on the list. All of that's going to be shared with the governing board. So it's not going to be, we're not having an open call to the public or an open debate or anything. We want to make sure we get input and feedback.
Okay. So if someone doesn't want something cut, we just put do not reduce, right? I mean, simple as that.
That's the idea. Some of the comments that you're making and the insights that you're having and the feelings that you're having are exactly what the governing board wants to hear. And I know there will be governing board meetings that will be coming up in which more detail of possible decisions might be coming up, and there'll be opportunity for one to say specifically if the assessment coordinator goes on to some list of a possible saving and the job description and the duties of that particular one you would feel should not be let go, that it should be filled, then that's the kind of feedback we're trying to give to the governing board. What we don't do tonight, and because we're not there yet, but the governing board with the staff will have to do, is go through every single bit of in the budget, every line in the budget, and say, is this something we should or could gain some savings on? That's the job of the governing board, that detail. It's not our job here tonight because we would have to have an hours and hours workshop to do that, to make that. But if you have that feeling that ed services should not be at all in the savings bracket, that's what the governing board needs to hear. And that's what we're kind of trying to do tonight, imperfectly. You would feel free to put that in the do not reduce, because that's what you're saying. I don't think this general category should be looked at all for reduction because it's too vital to it. If you want to get specific, these are specifics, but they're there as an example. This is by far not complete. Much more work has to be done. But if you feel the specific for a category or something is there, that's what your voice is supposed to do tonight. Yeah.
I had 2 quick ones. Reduction of the AD stipend for the 5 schools. That was placed under a catch-all person that we hired. I'm assuming we hired. I was just going to ask how that's going, because that person, I remember when that job description came out, it was like mission impossible, I thought. Are they able to do the AD for the entire district successfully?
Yes. That's the hope. That was a position that was approved right before I started, but yes, that would be someone exclusively over athletics, among other things, to take that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. The microphone, looking at my water.
This is a bigger one, the guest teachers. I wonder if you could just elaborate a little bit on that, because guest teachers, permanent guest teachers, seem to be used to like a very large extent. In other words, I don't think too many of them don't have a job. So I don't understand what we're gaining, where you're coming up with $250,000 by reducing guest teachers.
There's a permanent guest teacher assigned to every school. There's 2 schools that have 2 permanent guest teachers, but not all of them are, not all those positions are filled. So there's 9 under the budget, but there's only 7 that are filled. And you're right, those teachers, those permanent guest teachers, those substitutes probably have work to do every day. They have classes to cover. And so that was something, my understanding is, that came out of some of the ESSER monies, some of the COVID monies that were assigned to the district. A lot of districts used COVID monies for classroom coverage and supporting the teachers. So this is simply the amount of what the 7 teachers, the 7 permanent substitute guest teachers would add up to their salaries if it was reduced. It was funded out of ESSER in the past, and then it got rolled over to maintenance and operations in this past year. So they had to pick up the cost there.
So what you're suggesting, Doctor, then is that these would not be filled and we would not have any permanent subs. Is that correct?
That is what is considered an idea if there was not a permanent guest teacher at every campus, but you used the substitutes that we have.
It's that many more subs are going to have to call every day.
Well, yeah, every school,
Starting point at all.
every school has 1 person, yeah, so they wouldn't have that person. Again, this is just an idea. That's a recommendation, but yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So no easy task to do this, as we're finding out to do it. So if we could, this is how I'd like to suggest that we proceed. You're at a table with colleagues, may or may not know each other. Introduce yourselves if you haven't. Take a moment, if you haven't already, to look at both lists and get familiar with the various number of current vacant positions on the list that has the amounts on it, but also look at the other list to understand the breadth of where public school dollars go into funding and the resources. Ask each other questions, have a little discussion, but when you get to the point, I'll give you about 5 or 10 minutes to do that. When you get to the point, the items that go on the poster board are individual. So each of you would be putting suggestions and categories, topics, whatever you want to say to the governing board, as if you were standing up in front of the microphone and say, this is an area that's okay. Yes, look for something. If you feel strongly in the area that shouldn't be cut, then put it under the do not reduce. I apologize for the word reduce. It's mine. I had to figure out to put something on top of these things of the 3 categories. The unsure is a maybe. You don't know the details because you and I are both not budget people. We don't know the details of the budget or the job descriptions, and you're unsure about it, then put it under the unsure category. And you can put anything. Now, you could use the Post-it note if you'd like. You can write directly onto the poster paper, whatever you'd like. Maybe put a line under something. And then there are index cards. At the end of the day, I'm going to collect all these index cards from the tables, and here's where you get to write a little bit more. I wouldn't want you to write a paragraph on your poster paper because it will run out of room really fast. But I have a ton of these. If you'd like to make a comment on what you're thinking or expand on the categories that you're putting under there, feel free, use those. And every one of them will go to the governing board. Is that fair enough? It's a workshop activity. Welcome to trying to do some complicated stuff in a short time and put it into some context and structure for that. So any questions before I give you about 10 minutes to think about things or talk about things? Are we clear? You good? Okay. Why don't you take about 10 minutes, think about it, look at the categories, and if you want to start writing, you can too. We are here to answer questions. If you have a specific question, you think of something, raise your hand. One of the staff will come over and help. Oh, this is a public meeting. This is a meeting that is being recorded and live streamed. So you won't have microphones at your table, but just know that the room is being recorded.
District aiding, or is it site-based aiding? That's a good question. Like last night, there were but 90% of those things are going to, these things are going to touch kids. And from what we just said, it sounded like it was going to trickle down to teachers. The district isn't going to cover these things. And we're doing like assessment. Obviously, we're professionals, right? Their way are site-based, instructional. So instructional coaches have somebody to went to our instructional coaches are in charge of the doing away with that service. They can't hire on. They can't put EL or they are to just do away with it. There's one the other item, one night, there's no vacuum or something along the line. Not happening 9 times out of 10. Yeah, like they're not. So that would be saving. We're not going to go into a bathroom and go, oh, it was dirty. That hasn't even. And then about, I mean, and then like literally, like we make sure they're like, oh, it was too dirty. Yeah, like because you know at that point you're at halftime. You're back to so that's what, so that's the kind of we don't have to pay for an administrator. They will pay about this that. But some of the other schools that are like we don't know what that's because they need an administrator. Yes, that is what the information. But just here, just here. There's two. There's one at Freedom and one at. No, I agree. Like other districts. They're not in the you know what I mean? But we have some when we place which preschool that already I can't say for sure, but I believe that they have. Yeah, I'm sure because of the, yeah. Appreciate Loretta like it's supposed to. They have a district coordinator, no admin needed.
Yeah, but at last one, like, if they're hiring. Well, if they don't, they will likely
Take away. Yeah. Sure. You want to write it or just stick it? Right now, she's been covering it as much as the lab.
Ours is covering, FMLA match.
What? Yeah. Stipend for AD at a district level school site. So what, I'm sorry, at a district level. Okay, so I'm at Liberty, we have a 0.2 AT, and she's gonna be shared between Loretta and Liberty, how is that even?
Yeah.
That's an important thing, coordinator at district level is the lead job nutrition, right? So where does that job requirement fall? Because somebody else are site-based coordinators. So if we're sharing oh gosh, Kendra, she's ours. If we're sharing Kendra, which is a school, who's gonna take on the testing coordinator's position?
If I could interrupt just for a second, your wonderful conversations. Please progress to putting your own ideas down onto either the Post-it notes or on the poster board, because that's the data that we're collecting and forwarding to the governing board tonight. So if you could move to that, we're going to stay here for about another 20 minutes or so for you to start to fill that out. And please let me know if you have any questions. Hi, everybody. We'll do about another 5 minutes to close out your thoughts, please, and be sure to write them down.
Very few parents we have are.
I didn't want to like notice it all. Save herself. We would have the public-
Okay, everybody, not to put a damper on your conversations, but we don't want to keep you here all night long. So our final part of this activity, and you certainly can keep writing while I'm talking though, is I'd like to do a little bit of a share out from the tables, if you can. Somebody want to volunteer from their table to be to tell us what you guys were talking about and some of the things that you were realizing. Anybody want to go first? Don't make me pick somebody. Paul, you'll go? All right, here's a microphone.
All right. Some of our do not reduce. The permanent subs, if you get rid of the permanent subs, you're just going to have to pay subs that we can't get in, so no use. And we probably even said add a couple to the district so that they can rotate around, because if you have permanent subs, we can always use them for something. Do not reduce the office manager, the secretary or nurse, ed services, the classroom coverage. Again, one of the themes was we wanted to make sure that the teachers are paid for what they're doing, and that we're not taking that away. And by reducing that classroom coverage, we're then asking the teachers to do the same stuff that they're doing above and beyond what they're doing without getting compensated for it. So that was one of the themes that we're trying to cover. The athletic director stipend, we said, if you're not going to pay them, then let's cut the program instead of not paying for what we're going to ask them to do. Counselor, psychologists, instructional coaches, and reading and interventionists, all on the do not reduce. Achieve 3000, we said that was a good program. And while I'm talking about that, we'll pop over to Dreambox. We said reduce that. It's very few people seem to like that. So put that on the reduce. Look at what we can do. Behavior interventionist, one of the thoughts was we're getting the SSOs and SROs in, see if we can use them for reading buddies, or what can we use them, because the goal is to have a gun in the classroom, and they can have a gun in the classroom reading to a buddy as well as they can sitting in the office doing whatever it is that they're doing. So if we've got a grant, bring them in and let them do some stuff. School supplies, well, it looks like a great thing to get rid of. We're already short on it, and all that's doing is saying, hey, parents, why don't you buy this for us? Or teachers, why don't you buy this for us? Do not reduce the preschool, and increase the fee for those that are paying. Right now, it's a pretty low fee, so those that are going to be using the preschool, we can have them pay. One of the unsure items, probably because we weren't sure where to put it, but the reading interventionists, they're doing the testing for those that are going into the kindergarten and early entrance exams. And they were asked, instead of being paid for it, to instead do it underneath their contract. So again, we're asking them to do more without what it is. They're there to teach the kids not to do this other stuff. And when we paid them, that was fine. They could go do that, but let's not pull it off. And then also, what happens to all those that move in during summer and can't get that? Then we may lose some of that. Reduce the sub program. It's not working. The executive bonuses and the executive director of operations, reduce those. Superintendent salary bonus, car allowance, increase the amount on the how much the single for the health benefits. Those that are on the single plan right now pretty much get a free health insurance. It's always hard because you're asking them to pay more, but at the same time, a family plan is paying like $1,600 for the HSA to get that health insurance, compared to someone that's single, it's free. So increase the amount that the individual has to pay for that. Ideally, I think it should be a little bit more equal, so that if you have a family, you're not really stuck paying a ton. versus a single having it free. And so instead of taking away the HSA benefit where you're wanting people to go, instead make the other place where you don't want them to be more expensive to encourage them to go to that other plan that you want them to do. Increase athletic fees. It is cheap compared to other options. And so if we're going to do that, we could increase that. See what stoppage we can do at Loretto Zumbro. I'm sure we've already got contracts signed and whatnot, but is there other furniture or other things that we could delay on that, even if it's a 6-month delay or some type of a way to reallocate some of those students to different places, because really Blue's the only one that's overcrowded. So can we help move something to reallocate those? The gifted program, reduce that, as well as the all student testing. And do not open Loretta Zumbro, save money on the operations and teachers and salaries and all that. The tractors, trucks, the maintenance, all that new equipment and stuff, let's not buy any more of that. District memberships and district consulting fees. District memberships look to see, because some of those do bring us value, but some of them not, and we hate to drop out of some of those, but at the same time, give a really heavy look at those. And the consulting fees, yes, let's do that internal. I'd rather have Ed Services help us with that and work that into, hey, this is what we're doing, than paying a consultant. All of that knowledge is gonna go out the door when they leave. Look at the admin taking 11-month contracts instead of 12-month contracts. So the principals and admins being on an 11-month contract, and that would be those that want to could do it that way, and that could be a savings. Any other thoughts?
Good. All right. Who wants to go next? Maybe just the next tape.
All right, so some of our ideas might mimic what they said, but I'll go through our reduce list. So they said, don't open Loretta Zumbro. I was under the impression that we had to. So if we have to, we thought that we should send Sierra Schools over to Loretta Zumbro because they already have an acting admin, and that's not an additional cost to the district. Also move pre-K to Loretta Zumbro, and they also have a district coordinator, so that would mean that they wouldn't necessarily need an administrator there, and the only additional salary that would require is possibly a nurse. Taking away district gas and car stipends. Human resources, if we're on a hiring freeze, we can reduce and stop hiring for HR. Armored car service, a communications director, we don't think is of value at this point. Anything that can be absorbed at a district level. Teachers are already doing a ton of stuff. Administrators, on the sites, we're doing a lot, not to say that district isn't, but a lot of these problems are stemming from district, so. District consult fees, district memberships, district secretary, reduce maintenance, but we also don't want that to make our schools not look good. So if we can reduce but not cut. Spending on customer service signs, taking pictures, putting them in the offices, that's an extended cost that's not needed. Gifted programs cluster in a gen ed classroom instead of having their own program. That would alleviate some things we aren't sure about. Is we didn't really have a choice on the buses or the transportation. There's a lot of us that aren't happy about the electric buses, that we have $6.9 million in concrete sitting there, and most of our bus depot has no AC. Things that we don't want to reduce are permanent guest teachers. 1 per building we think is needed at least. HSA we think is a value. I was talking to Crystal Mosher, and something that maybe wasn't thought about is we were encouraged to take the HSA, the lower one, so that we would have that account where we were grandfathered into the highest one. We're no longer grandfathered. So all those of us that are on the HSA right now may choose a higher higher tier. So we would also maybe increase costs in that. So it may not be the reduced amount that they think it would be. We think that it's important that we have instructional coaches in each building, one per building. Reading interventionists, we believe, are a must. Mandatory SPED team members need to be on sites. Counselors in psych. Signing bonuses are on the do not reduce, as well as champs, and we thought that they needed to be added to the instructional category because they do have their own set of standards that they are needing to teach. Nurse, secretary, office managers are a must. Paras, classroom coverage, teachers already do a lot, so adding more to their plate is just going to decrease morale. AD stipend, athletic director stipends, we believe are important, and also supplies into classrooms. Things that are touching kids' hands, they need to not be cut.
You want to pass the microphone?
Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, you're the one who put your name in. For that, the big seat.
All right. I'll read what Dave wrote. On the reduce, assistant superintendent for HR, superintendent, no reduce payments, no bennies like cars and things like that. What's this one say? Department directors' salaries need to be reduced. The assessment coordinator, juice box, Loomis, the district memberships, the district consulting fees, property liability insurance. We spend a lot of time getting educated rather than writing sometimes. Communication director, school psychologist, purchase of new equipment, the unsures, the one-time purchase reduction, and we wanted to have at least one counselor at each school. And then ESC.
Education Services Coordinator.
Educational Services Coordinator, do not reduce. The HVAC tech.
Summer's insane.
Oh, summer is insane. Okay. HSA benefits, same thing. Reading interventionist should not be reduced. Permanent guest teacher should not be reduced. Champ should not be reduced. Is this one?
Hire principals and APs from within, so that way you don't have to compete as much with other districts. Plus, they have our culture already, so. Oh, and what else? For the psychologist position, we do agree on having a psychologist at the district. But it looked like there was 2 positions for that. And if we're already having problems hiring for filling those out, then that might be one that we could lose. But we do need a school or a district psychologist. Yes.
I'll just go across the room.
I'm glad you guys are reading this, because if you have a hard time reading some of these, I'm going to have a devil of a time 2 days from now. So I appreciate it.
Okay, so we have listened to a lot of what you've said and agree with a lot of what you've said. Things do not reduce. I think maintenance and groundskeeping is important. I think we've done a good job to reduce some of the costs on that area. I agree with the HSA benefit. I think that's important to everyone. The signing bonus, I think, is, we have to have that. I would like us to bring back Dane Bolden. The prepaid account for the property liability, I believe we can move that. That's a good benefit that is a savings. The third-party cleaning, I think that's a good savings. We can contract out, see if we can reduce some of those costs. The fuel and transportation and the trust services, I think that was an important move. And champs, you have to have champs. I think we need some more funding resources. So some of the unsures and the reductions, how can we rework it? Like sponsorships from businesses for things like school supplies. You know, I think that maybe we reach out to our community businesses that are coming in and we see if we can get some interest and help in small ways that would reduce some of those expenses that we have. We were unsure about the guest teachers versus the substitutes, and I know you have some good reasons for that, but that was just something we were unsure about. Juice box, the shared instructional coach, and the professional memberships, the ASA, ASBO, those kind of things. To reduce, we thought that what I'm trying to say is our education services coordinator and our assessment coordinator, can we add to somebody that's already qualified that would say, I would like an extra $10,000 or $20,000 on my salary, I can maybe step in and take that role. So you're appreciating them, and yet we're reducing for the total cost to have it in-house. The communications director, I'm an admin person. I appreciate what people do in the district. So I would be for the secretary, maybe that has that extra graphics and communication experience that would be able to take on both roles, and we give them a bump in salary of, $10,000, which certainly is reduces by $125,000. So that was my thought on that. The custodial services that we learned, we can move some of these categories, take it out of M&O. Loomis, again, that's another one that can go to M&O. And the behavioral interventionist, I thought maybe we could share some positions to do some cost savings there, just to kind of help out.
Wonderful, thank you. And I believe, there we go.
I've heard some good ideas already. And reduce the education services, the size of the department can be looked at. Web page and the logo design. Communications director, we found that one of the reasons that position was in place was to increase enrollment, and that did not take place. So we're okay going away from that. The district memberships, we could sell some electric buses when they get delivered and recoup some of that. And consulting fees with the district. And unsure, the permanent guest teachers, perhaps there would be some opportunity to send some of them to other schools when there's availability and a need in another school. Just making sure that otherwise maybe it just needs to revert to a pool to make sure that that's optimized and those funds are optimized. Do not reduce the custodial maintenance and HVAC, anything to keep the lights on and the doors open of all the schools. I don't think you can look for cost savings with looking at contracts, but those are just critical to keeping things safe for the children and staff. Classroom teachers, class size targets, that was something that was in the last M&O vote to be protected. I don't think you can touch that. Reading interventionists, reading upside down, CHAMPS was also protected by voters in the last override, and then school counselors.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for really diving in and contributing. Every table, every person, we greatly appreciate it. I've been asked to remind you that, Ms. Zimmerman, if I get this right, that you are free to contact the governing board members by email with additional comments, thoughts on this, but I guess on any topic. That's why their emails, I'm not going to say phone numbers, but I don't know that they're posted, but no. Your emails are posted. They all have Liberty emails, and that's what they're there for. So I would be remiss to not remind all of us that you can reach out with your thoughts about the budget and the savings directly, and they're there and they will receive your voice on that.
They left, right? And so there should be a line in there where we're gonna replace him, obviously, right?
Job's posted, so we'll see.
Okay, all right.
Job is posted, so we'll see. Yes. Any closing comment for the good of the order? I'd like to thank you personally for engaging so well in the activity. Whenever you run a workshop, you never know whether the approach you're going to take for the workshop is going to involve everybody. But what I'll be doing is I'll be collecting everything that's on the table and then trying to trying to tabulate it. So I am not going to just summarize what you're saying. I'm going to tabulate it and provide it to the governing board, every single comment in the categories, everything that is on the 3x5 cards. We also have now an audio record of your comments as you walk through. That is data in my book, and that, if I can, I am going to access these closing comments and create a transcription of it so it is part of the record to hear your voice in what you guys were talking about. Is that fair? Is that good? Try to do as much as I can for that. So with that, Dr. Monroe, any closing comments?
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your voice. Thank you for spending 90 minutes with us. You can email the board, you can email me, but drive safe. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being pro-liberty, and appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you all. Drive safe.
Dr. Thank you for your time.